Clippers are versatile tools that can be used in several ways to cut a variety of hair textures and styles. The standard techniques are freehand clipping, cutting, and clipper over comb cutting. However, you can also use clippers as you would shears to cut hair that is held between your fingers. This cutting method creates more texture in the hair ends than the blunt ends that shears produce. As a general rule, clipper cutting is followed up with shear and comb work to fine-tune the haircut and to perform arching or outline work. Cutting and tapering the hair with clippers can be accomplished by cutting with the grain, against the grain, or across the grain. Freehand clipping cutting requires a steady hand and consistent use of the comb or hair pick while cutting. The use of the comb or pick is important because both implements are used to put the hair into position to be cut and help to remove the excess hair cut from the previous section. This will provide you with a clear view of the cutting result and any areas that may need to be reblemished or cutting. True freehand cutting techniques tend to be used on two extremes of hair lengths. They are used for very short, straight, wavy, and curly lengths in which little clipper over comb work is performed. For short hairstyles, detachable blade sizes generally range from size 4/0 close to shaving to size 3.5, which indicates the hair approximately 3/8 inch long. Some manufacturers now have 5/0 blade sizes as well. Freehand clipping cutting techniques are used for longer, tightly curled hair lengths that require more sculpting. Used for cutting tightly curled hair when a natural look is desired, the hair is picked out and put into position for cutting. A keen eye for balance, shape, and proportion is important when sculpting the hair into shape. The freehand method is also used to taper hairlines at the nape, back, and sides. Refer to the following guidelines when practicing freehand clipper cutting. Remember to practice on the mannequin first. Start at the center nape area with the blade open. Gradually tilt the blade away from the head so the clipper rides on the heel of the bottom blade. Glide the clipper upward into the hair to about an inch above the hairline. Roll the clipper out of the blade, cut through the ends of the hair. Note the removal of the hair in the lower nape area. Clipper over comb cutting can be used for the entire haircut or to blend the hair from shorter taper areas to longer areas at the top, crest, or occipital. Most of the shear over comb technique, the comb place the hair in a position to be cut and utilize the same blending principles. Refer to the following guidelines when practicing clipper over comb cutting. Always remember to practice on the mannequin first. Begin in the back section and comb the hair down. Roll the comb out to put the hair in a position to be cut. Cut across the hair ends producing from the comb with the clipper. Many barbers refer to an outliner or trimmer with a fine cutting edge to finish sideburns and the outline area of the ears downward to the sides of the neck. This method of arching is effective and precise due to the manufacturer variability of the smaller cutting head of the tool. If the desired result can be accomplished with a standard clipper, that method is equally acceptable. Razor cutting is another method used by barbers to cut or texturize the hair. The angle of the razor relatively to the surface of the hair taper the hair ends rather than the blunt ends produced by the shear cutting. This advantage makes razor cutting an effective option for blending, softening, shortening, or releasing weight from the hair strands during a cut. The basic razor cutting techniques are razor rotation, razor over comb, and finger and razor cutting. The hair sections being cut need to be cut uniformly damp to ensure that the blade cuts through the hair smoothly without pulling or snagging. Dry cutting is uncomfortable for the client and can frizz the hair surface. Razor over comb. Cutting can be performed in two different ways using a freehand razor position. The first method is similar to the shear or clipper over comb cutting, while rolling the comb out projects the hair ends into position for cutting, and vertical or diagonal razor strokes are used across the comb to remove the length. The second method involves positioning the razor horizontally on top of the comb to cut the hair that extends through the teeth of the comb with short, precise strokes and medium pressure. This second method is often used to blend and taper sections or to soften weight lines. Razor rotation is performed by using rotating motion with the comb and razor as the hair is being cut. In the first movement, the razor follows the comb through the hair. In the second movement, the comb follows the razor, and so on to taper, blend, thin, or remove weight. This method requires coordinated razor stroking and combing actions to maintain a continuous movement through the hair. Fingers and razor cutting is performed by holding the hair sections between the hair fingers and cutting either from the top of the bottom of the section or from the side of the other. This method can use on vertically or horizontally parted sections to remove length, taper ends, and reduce weight in mid-shaft sections, also known as freehand slicing. With razor, this technique can be used to create more movement within a style or soften perimeters. Some barbers consider razor cutting to be the best method for tapering and blending the hair because the razor edge permits a smoother blend rather than it can be achieved with shears or clippers. When razor cutting a section, the cutting technique and angle of the razor stroke you will be determined to how the hair is removed from the hair strands. It is important that you learn how to coordinate the razor and comb. A general rule is to taper a little at a time to avoid removing too much hair. Consider the following taper blending methods used to achieve different effects. In light taper and blending, the razor is held almost flat against the surface of the hair. Note the small amount of the hair that is cut with the blade is only slightly tilted and very little pressure is used. Heavier taper and blending is performed with the razor held up to the 45-degree form surface of the hair strands. As the razor is tilted higher and a little more pressure is used, the depth of the cut increases. In terminal blending, the blend edge of the razor blade is increased to almost 90 degrees. This produces the least amount of tapering to the hair ends. Some general guidelines to keep in mind when razor cutting different hair textures are as follows. Coarse, thick hair requires more strokes and heavier tapering than other textures to remove bulk. Medium texture has required fewer razor strokes and lighter pressure than coarse, thick hair to blend or remove bulk. Avoid over thinning the hair. Fine hair does not usually have any bulk or remove, although you might want to use the razor to create a texture at the perimeter. Use a light stroke of the razor with little pressure. The hair must be clean and damp for the best results and to avoid discomfort. Maintain moisture content throughout the cut. Avoid tapering too close to the hair part or the scalp. Tapering the hair too closely to the hair part will cause the hair to stand up, making the part look raggedy. Coarse hair that is cut too closely to the scalp will have short, stubbly hair ends that can produce through the top layer. Avoid over tapering as it is difficult to correct a haircut after too much hair has been removed. Razor cutting safety precautions. Handle the razor properly, keeping it closed whenever not in use. Be aware of people around you when working with a sharp tool or implement. A careless motion can cause injury to yourself or others. Do not distract or startle anyone who is performing a service. Purchase and use only good quality haircut implements. Use changeable blade razors and dispose of used blades in a sharps container. Replace dull razor blades during the cut if necessary. A dull blade will pull the hair and cause pain or discomfort to the client. Dull blades will also decrease the quality of the haircut. Hair thinning is used to reduce the bulk or weight of the hair. You can use thinning, shears, regular shears, clippers, or razors for the purpose. Regardless of the tools used, some general rule to follow when removing bulk from hair are as follows. Make a careful observation of the hair to determine the sections that require some reduction in bulk or weight and cut accordingly. Avoid cutting top surfaces of the hair where visible cutting lines can be seen. Part off the elevated the hair to be cut to avoid cutting too deeply into the section. Avoid cutting too closely to the scalp or part lines. Removing bulk. Review the following methods that can be used to reduce bulk or thick areas within a hair design. Thinning. When thinning with serrated shears, the hair parting is combed and held between the index and middle finger. Place the serrated shears about mid-shaft on the strands and make a cut. Make subsequently cuts at about 1 inch from the first cut. Do not cut twice in the same place. Slicing and curving. There are 2 slicing methods that can be used to remove bulk with regular shears. In this procedure, slithering, a thin parting of the hair is held between the fingers. The shears are positioned for cutting and up and down sliding motion along the hair section is combed with a slight closing of the shears each time they are moved toward the scalp. Removing the weight from the ends. Removing weight from the ends helps to taper or lighten the perimeter graduated and blunt haircuts. This can be accomplished using thinning shears by elevating the section and placing the shears at an angle as the cut are made or using the comb to put the hair into position for cutting. Point cutting or notching the regular shears can be used to reduce weight in the ends of the hair. For either of the techniques, parting is held between the fingers and the tips of the shears are used vertical or diagonal angles to create points or notches in the hair. Typically, notches is more aggressive type of point cutting that produces a chunkier effect at the hair ends. Clippers and razors can be used to remove weight from the hair ends as follows. Use the clipper over comb technique to put the hair end in position to be cut. Position the clipper blade under the hair end. Use a reverse rotation technique with the clipper to comb through the end with the section to another. Razor over comb or freehand slicing technique can be used to lighten hair ends with the razor. As a barber, most haircuts you perform will result in some variations or combination of the basic haircuts discussed in this section. Knowing how to perform these cuts provides the foundation from which to create customized haircut designs for your clients. That said, it would be helpful to keep the following consideration in mind when discussing different haircut names and styles. Style names may refer to a particular haircut or variation of a haircut. For example, taper cut or businessman cut. Haircut style names may differ or may be introduced differently from region to region. For example, a temple fade in the Midwest may be called a Philly fade in the East Coast, and a quo vadis has been known to be called a Caesar cut in some parts of the country, when in fact the traditional Caesar is longer style. As with other expressions of fashion, haircut style tend to typically means basic style, often modified in some ways to reintroduce to the market and become popular again as a new trend. For For example, the Classic Pompadour of the 1950s has returned in both classic form and with variation modifications that have been produced in a variety of pompadour fade styles. Your familiarity with the basic haircut and style names will provide you with the name frame of reference for discussing haircut options with your client and the ability to perform the many variations we'll encounter in a barbershop. Some classic haircut styling names are the flat top, crew cut, high and tight, fade, taper, pompadour, Caesar, and Quo Vadis. Following is discussion of these classic cuts and variations. Flat tops are very short on the side and back area with a slightly longer hair at the upper parietal and front section and a flat top section. The top of the crest area should look squared off when viewed from the front. A high top fade is a variation of the flat top cone with the elevation of a fade. Flat tops require a steady hand and consistent horizontal comb placement when cutting through the top section to ensure a balanced, level cut. Following are a few tips for flat tops. The squared off crest and top section create the flat look. Variations of the style and length of the top section will be determined by the client's preference, head shape, hair texture, and hair density. A steady hand is needed when cutting the top section. Clippers and shears are used to perform the cut. Crew cuts have short, semi-short, or medium tapered side and back lengths, with a top section that gradually increases in length from the crown to the front hairline. When viewed from the front, crew cuts are more rounded than flat tops in the crest area and should blend into the top section with a slight contrever that conforms to the contours of the head. Following are some guides for the crew cut. The back and sides are cut relatively high to the bottom of the crest area. Back and sides are tapered and blended to the crest and top sections. A wide tooth comb is used to the top section to provide the level guide. The shears and comb are used to smooth out any uneven spots left by the clipper work. Brush or butch cuts are variations of the crew cut. The sides and back are cut to a short crew cut length, but the hair on the top is uniformly cut at 1/4 to 1/2 of it follows the contours of the head. A brush cut is styled with the hair combed back over the top section to strand straight up, while the butch cut may be styled forward or to the side. High and tight cuts are cut extremely close to or shade on the sides and back to a level at the bottom, midpoint, or top of the parietal ridge. Where visible, hair should be seen blended with short top sections, no more than 1/4 inch length. Depending on the client's preference, the line of demarcation at the top of the parietal ridge can either be left as is or be blended into top sections. The fade style derived its name from the fact that the hair is longest in the top section and gradually fades down to nothing at the hairline. Like the high and tight cut, the back and sides are cut extremely close or shaved, with the hair becoming gradually longer at the parietal ridge and longest at the top. Like other basic styles discussed, there are many variations of fades that can be performed in a variety of hair textures. Following are some general guidelines for the fade style. Cut the top section to the desired length. Cut the nape up to the occipital to the desired length. The parietal ridge is transition area between the sides and the top section. Most of the blending and close tapering occurs in this area, being guided by the natural hairline patterns to avoid creating gaps and patches. A taper cut is a well-blended, graduated cut that conforms to the head shape. A proper taper cut gradually increases the length from the hairline to the top section without any gaps or steps. Typically, the top section is left long enough to provide different styling options for parted and off-the-face styles. The basic taper cut may also be called the regular taper or standard haircut, with variations that include the business cut, ivory, lead, Princeton, and persistent cut. Taper cuts can vary in length and volume from short and close to long and full, but all tapers should conform to the natural head shape. When performing a taper cut, you will need to ask your client if he wants a natural taper at the neck or if he wants it blocked. Use the fingers and shear techniques in the top and crest sections. Taper nape and side hairlines using freehand clipper or clipper over comb cutting. Taper through the back and sides using clipper over comb and shear over comb techniques. A precision cut taper describes a variation in the cutting technique rather than style description. The majority of the cut is performed using the fingers and shear cutting technique to taper and blend the hair from one section to another. A general rule to follow to use precision cutting on various hair textures is this: if the hair can be parted and picked up between the fingers to put into a position for cutting, precision cutting can be performed. The hair should be clean and uniformly moisture to enable you to maintain control of the hair while cutting to the procedure of the moist, precise cut. The Classic Pompadour is basically a medium to long taper cut with a long top section. Depending on the client's preferred length, the taper begins at the hairline and gradually increases in length through the back and sides of the long layered front and top section. Layering in the top section provides many style options, from slick back look to a full or spiky front section. Today's Pompadour fade combines the very short nape back and side sections of a fade with the extra long top section of the classic cut. Length increase in the top section can be achieved by using over direction from the front to the crown, or by using a diagonal cutting line that is shorter at the crown and increasingly longer towards the front. When performing the Classic Pompadour, use vertical parting and steep dialogue cutting lines to blend short sides to longer top length. Be sure to have the client confirm what type of pompadour he desires, classic or pomp fade style. The classic Caesar style is cut with shears to create a uniform layer from 1 to 2 inches throughout the head form. These short layers are often styled forward and down over the front hairline and may have a rounder appearance than other cuts. Today's versions of the Caesar may incorporate tapering or fading in the side and back areas with a uniform length in the top section that is styled forward. Following are some guidelines for a Caesar. Older clients may not be familiar with the new variations of the Caesar cut, so you will have to explain differences to them to confirm what type of Caesars they have in mind. The fingers and shear technique is used to cut the hair at 90-degree elevation to create uniform layers within a cut. The classic Quo-Vadis is sometimes confused with the Caesar, so again, be sure your client confirms his expectation before beginning the cut. The Quo-Vadis is another uniform cut style, however, clippers are used to achieve its close, even, all-over length. The haircut style, which generally is suitable for most hair textures, confirms that the contour of the head and produces a more uniform, consistent appearance on medium to thick hair. Following are general guidelines for the Quo-Vadis style. The even all-over length will depend on the client's preference. Select a blade size that will lead the hair at the desired length. Be guided by the natural hair growth pattern to avoid creating gaps and patches. Remember that cutting against the grain leaves the hair shorter than cutting with